come out and restart the meeting again, wouldn't it? Oh, it appears that we're on.
Steph's done it.
Steph's
Brilliant.
done it.
Well done. Okay. All right. So item 2 then, record of the last meeting. Are there any matters arising from that? Panima, I think you wanted to comment, didn't you?
Yeah, there was one particular matter arising that I just wanted to address. One of our schools forum representatives did ask the question about what level of decision making really should schools forum be making, and actually felt somewhat like the papers being presented to them were not presenting options as such, and so felt very much like a done deal in some circumstances. So wanted to take that away and have a look at a few things really. So looked and scrutinised the schools forum operational guidance and all the other documents relating to schools forum powers and responsibilities. But also Dalbeer kindly did quite a large trek through a number of other local authorities' school forum papers. And off the back of those 2 pieces of work, I can first of all confirm that what we present to school forum members for decision is absolutely complying with the guidance and what is expected of us as a local authority. And secondly, we are not out of kilter with what other local authorities do, in that local authorities, when presenting papers for decision, do not tend to present a number of options. It is for the local authority to present a proposal and for the schools forum members to scrutinise and challenge that proposal, which we absolutely value and want you to do, and then to make a decision. Having spoken to Phil and others about this, what we can do, however, is where on those papers there are options that in pulling the paper together we're not necessarily including in the paper, we will try and do a better version of the paper that does tell you what our thought process has been. But I sort of need to remind school forum members that so much has changed over the last few years when it comes to school forum responsibilities, especially in relation to the national funding formula. So where a few years ago, schools forum absolutely would have had more, or we as local authority would have had more options because we weren't following the hard national funding formula. Because we are now, we are very limited. So essentially, when it comes to a lot of the budgetary and financial decisions that we're asking school forum to make, there aren't any options. We're just following the necessary process, following the formula to the law, and then taking that through to what we are presenting you with. So I sort of want to manage expectations a little bit, but I also want to say that where we have gone through some options, we will do a better job of explaining why we have presented what we are presenting. Is that okay? But I'm really happy to take any questions about the points I've just made.
Okay, any questions for Panima? Thanks for that. And we encourage everybody to have a look at the document that was issued at an earlier meeting and that Dalbeer sent out, I think, again, about a week or so ago. It explains a lot of stuff around school finance. And if you're a governor, particularly, and if you're a finance governor, there's a lot of stuff, background stuff there, which you hopefully will find very interesting. I do, but perhaps it's just me. Okay. Thank you. All right then. Item 3. Very pleased to have with us today our new Assistant Director of Education, Johnny Kyriakou, who joined Warwickshire a few months ago. Welcome. And he's got a few remarks for us, an introduction for us. Thank you, Johnny.
So, thank you, Philip, and thank you, everybody. Nice to meet everybody, although there's a lot of people got their cameras off, so I can't see you. So it's a blind hello to everybody. I'm delighted to be here. I started in March the 1st, so I'm coming up to 7 months now. In terms of my role here, it's been a great start to the job. I've been getting around to schools and trying to visit people and see everybody and build back up relationships between the local authority and schools. And we very much want to ensure that we're working with all our schools, academies, maintained schools. And there's so much on the agenda with all our services that we provide, that working together from our SEND services, attendance, admissions, and all the things that require us to work as partners together for the good of all our Warwickshire children, and to give them better life chances and overcome barriers that they have. So I'm pleased to be here, and I'll continue visiting people. We've set up a new Warwickshire Education Partnership Board that meets monthly, that has representatives of all head teachers across the county. We had one a few weeks ago, which was very successful. So we're starting to look at how the LA can have a more strategic approach with schools to enable us to move forward together and to overcome a lot of the challenges that we face that are often outside of our control. But nevertheless, there are things that we can control, which working together will be for the benefit of all. So I look forward to being here and yeah, and seeing some of you at some stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any questions for Johnny? Well, there you go. You've got off lightly. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll move on to the main items of the agenda then. As you can see, we've got one matter for decision today, which is about dedelegation. And then we've got a number of matters underneath it where we're asked to comment and scrutinise. And I do encourage people to ask questions about those reports. Okay, thank you. So the first one then is item 4. Which covers dedelegations of the schools block budgets for 2024-25. This is something that we do every year, and this applies to the maintained school representatives on here. And there are a list of items in item 1 where we're being asked to vote on. The consultation took place. A very good response this year. Out of 109 consultees, I think we got 65, but I'm probably over talking the report, and I'll let Brian say if he's got anything else to add.
Yeah, I've just ticked off my little notes there.
Sorry, Brian, I was getting carried away.
No, you're fine, Phil, don't worry about it. So this is going on from what Phil's saying. There were really 7 decisions for primary school delegates to make a decision on, and 4 items for the single secondary school, which we've already had an electronic voting, as Phil mentioned earlier. I'd just like to emphasise really is that you are, although you're free to vote as an individual school, individual delegate on the schools forum, you are actually representing your sector. And due consideration should be taken of the consultation when you do vote, and that's all I'm going to say on that issue. Before we go on to the individual votes, are there any questions on any of the individual items for the primary school? So those 7 items. Hopefully the information in the paper and in the consultation gave you a background on why we believe these things should be de-delegated to us, for economies of scale and for ease of providing a service to yourselves rather than yourselves going elsewhere. So any questions before we go into the votes?
Thank you. It's a very comprehensive report, Brian, as usual. I think it explains it all very well. Just to emphasise what Brian says, we're representatives, we're not delegates, but we need to take cognizance of the results of the consultation, which I think the outcomes are fairly clear. Okay, so I encourage everybody to do that. So we'll take them one by one, and I think this is only for representatives, the people who are representing maintained primary schools, of which we've got an electorate of 7. I think, is that right? Have we got 7 people here? Okay, well, we'll take them in turn anyway. I'm sure somebody will advise me if we haven't got a majority. Okay, so the first one is free school meal eligibility. If you support the de-delegation of that, please indicate by raising your hand on the screen.
And this is primary representatives we're looking for votes from here.
Primary maintained.
Sorry, yes, primary maintained representatives.
Right, I've got 3 votes. Are there, if you'd like to take your hands down.
I
Is
think we
anyone
only
vote-
actually have 3.
Okay,
Eligible
so it's
to
an
vote.
electorate of 3. We're not quite North Korea, but close. All right then. Right, that's 3 in favour. All right then. English as an additional language. You'd like to indicate? Okay, thank you. Trade union facility time funding. Thank you. School improvement. Thank you. Gypsy and Romani travellers. Thank you. Behaviour support services. Okay, and finally, medical referrals for employees. Thank you. I think that's a fairly comprehensive result. Thank you very much for that.
Just for the record, Phil, can we ensure that we recognise that the vote by the secondary school, single secondary school, was in favour of de-delegation of the 4 items as well?
Yeah, thank you
Okay.
very much, Brian. Thank you. We'll note that for the record. Right then, we'll move on to item 5, which is the DSG report for 23-24, the latest position. Brian, I think this is you again, isn't it?
Yes, it is. This is the financial monitoring position for our forecast for the end of the year, 23-24. It's based on information we had from managers at the end of July. That will be updated very shortly, and we'll bring another report to the schools forum in the next round. If you just go on to table 1, is really showing the original position before recoupment of the budget of 543 million. Then after recoupment by 2 academy schools and for high needs recoupment, we're currently monitoring to a budget of 260 million. Okay. Table 2, paragraph 2.1, really shows where the forecasts are at the moment. So we're showing a small variance on the schools block, no variance on the central services block, a planned overspend on the early years block, and a large anticipated overspend on the high needs block. Okay. Then we go down to table 3, which in effect shows the effect on the DSG reserve of those outturn figures, of those overspends. So this will increase the overdrawn DSG reserve from 16 million up to just over 25 million. As representatives know, as a local authority, for assurance for our accounts, make sure we are ongoing concern, we need to cover that reserve, which we do with what we call an offset reserve, matched almost entirely by council funding. We can't use it physically to pay off that overspend, but we have to cover it in our accounts. Going down to the actual explanation for the variances in section 4, the schools block, it's a relatively minor overspend that could change dramatically with the start of the new academic year, and any slippage we might have in the growth fund, etc. So we'll just be monitoring that carefully going forward. I'll just leave the high needs block for a second and go to the other 2 blocks. The early years block, the overspend there is primarily due to a planned use of funding for post-recovery grants. For those who remember, we set aside 1.4 million last year to be paid over in 3 or 4 what we call tranches for COVID recovery grants for all PVI sector to apply for. This is the final amount that we've paid over from those applications. Okay, and then the central school block, I said no, it's basically a zero variance at the moment. A lot of those costs are fixed, so there's only a few variables in there at the moment. The current position as at the end of July was that there isn't going to be anything major in there, so most managers have forecasted to budget. Okay, now if we just go back up to the high needs block, that's obviously the area of ongoing concern and where the overspend is. This is all intrinsically linked to our Send Inclusion Change programme, and then that being morphed into our inclusion as part of the DfE's developing best value model. Myself, Ross, Johnny are involved, and other colleagues are involved with the DfE. We've just been in a meeting about 5-10 minutes ago with them. Oh, sorry, half an hour ago with them. So it's a piece of work that's going on to really look at how we can try and getting best value, but at the same time maintaining the key focus of better outcomes for children. The areas of overspend mentioned in 4.3 are the big areas of the budget. Mainstream school top-ups, the independent special schools where we've seen a larger than anticipated take-up, and also the actual unit costs that are coming through from providers have greatly grown. Part of that is probably cost of living and pay awards. It also might also be the needs of the children and the necessity of the ISPs to actually fund those additional costs. We've also got a variance on the resource provision. There was, overall on the high needs block there was a deficit. We had to decide where we thought we would reduce the budget to create a balanced budget. And this is one of the areas that has been hit with more places and more costs. On the opposite side, there are some underspends that have offset the overspends, and they're listed in 4.4. As part of our plan for developing best value model, we're going to be resetting all the budgets next year, and we've got a few options of how we do that, and that'll be brought forward to the schools forum in March, the meeting where we finalise the actual budgets. Are there any particular questions without me ranting on about what's already in the report?
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions from members? I don't think there are any particular surprises in there, are there? I mean, we note in 2.2 that we're now at 1.69% overspend, and we're over that threshold. But we do have our recovery plan, which I'm sure Ross is going to talk about later. And it's also instructive to see, I think in table 2.1, that the balance of those numbers at the bottom is table 1. The balance of those numbers at the bottom is changing as more of our schools convert from being maintained to academies, and now over 50% academies, aren't we?
Yeah.
Okay. If there are no...
Penema.
it was only to say in between reports, because I think we're about to move to the next report. We've just had a request if anyone presenting reports can make the size of the papers a little bit bigger for those people seeing them on a smaller screen. Thank you.
Cheers, Steph. Shall I go on to the next one then, Phil? Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay. This is really just for information. It's about our anticipated timetable for giving you details of the national funding formula when we get updated information, and how we anticipate providing the information and fixing the final formula next year, and sending budgets out to schools. Some of the key dates, obviously next week is your census date, the 5th of October. We've also got some other dates in there around 16th of November, which is a provisional date, because we're not sure of exactly when the deadline for us to submit any disapplication to the ESFA is. Then there's some more dates for you to say that when we receive the updated DSG with the new census, October census information in, when we're going to go in January with meetings at the schools forum in January to agree that the rates and everything, how we'll then complete what we call the APT, which is basically the old schools formula, detailed by every school, and then how we'll then inform yourselves, each individual school, of their allocations. That's really the timetable, and this is really just for your information. Are there any questions on any of what's in here? Like I will all emphasize, some of the dates are provisional, depending on notifications of from the DFE of confirmation.
Yeah, we've sent out a placeholder date for the 16th of November for the next schools forum, haven't we? But when will we be able to confirm when that date is valid or not?
Well, myself or Steph will try and badger the DFE again, and we'll see if we get a date. Okay.
Right. All right. Thank you very much. Are there any further questions for Brian then? Okay, in that case, we'll move.
Can I ask a quick question?
Of course you can. Yeah.
It's probably an operational one really, but I'm going to ask it. So those that are waiting on ECHP plans, do we consider those being added to the census total, or do we look at just the ones that have received ECHP and placed in school by that census deadline? Does this make sense, or have I got the wrong end of the stick? Sorry,
shall I
Ross.
come back to that? If I come,
help me understand that just a little bit, please.
Okay, I think in terms of being on roll, the child will be on roll whether they have an EHC plan or not.
Right.
So I don't think it'll make a difference from that funding point of view. The whole point of the EHC plan is top up funding for that. And when it comes to our special schools, they're commissioned by their places as well. So in terms of any children who are awaiting an assessment, they should still be on a school roll, in which case this won't affect them in terms of the census.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. That's the piece that to my jigsaw wasn't fitting in. So thank you for that.
No, that's fine. Okay, Rebecca Harrison, please.
Yeah, mine's kind of a follow-up to actually what Cam was saying. So we've got some children whose plans I believe we are expecting, but we're still waiting for the draft form. So like Cam's saying, how do I put that on my census? Am I going to get top-up funding, or am I not going to get top-up funding? Because that's what the question is on the census.
Okay, so there should be, if we've agreed the assessment and we've agreed to issue, there should be an estimated date where the EHC plan becomes live. what we do is we backdate to for the date when it should have been issued, even if it's late in terms of the school, and then having that funding. So there should be an estimated date when it should happen. For the census, I think you just put on the status at the time. So if it's prior to the child having the EHC plan issued, then it's still at send support, so it'll still be K. But if it's after that date, then it's obviously then it would be E, and we're saying we're going to issue it. In terms of the top-up funding, we then provide that separately, don't we? I think it's very rare these days, Rebecca, that we have any plans without top-up funding.
That's what I'm assuming, but it's the fact it's still at draft phase, and it came through during the summer at draft phase. So am I saying we are an E because we're getting it, or am I saying we're still on a K?
I'm not the expert. So if you've got a draft, then we are issuing a plan. Okay,
so
it's past the
from an E.
It's past
That's
the decision. I would. It's 4 weeks from drafting a plan to finalising a plan. So if those 4 weeks have passed, then I think it'd be fair to say you can record it as an E, because the child's EHC plan should have been issued by that date.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions on that? Okay, we'll move on to item 7. Is this you, Steph?
It is indeed. So this paper kind of links very nicely onto Brian's paper on the NFF and the school's budget setting. So as a new task this year, myself and my team have drafted some estimated schools budgets based on the indicative authority pro forma tool that's been issued to us in August. I'm hoping this will enable schools to have a bit more of an estimated budget given to them in advance of their actual budgets being given in January, February, in order to enable them to do some better planning. I say this paper just details some of the key headline figures of what's been used and how it's been done. But the thing that should really be noted and pointed out is that the figures used in the estimates are based on the current year's pupil data, because we don't have new pupil data yet for the budgets, because they get drawn by the October census. So really all these estimated budgets do tell you is the increase in the rates as part of the national funding formula. But these are the rates that will be used as part of your budgets for next year. So it gives you a good indication of the increases that you will receive. On the back of this report in the next few weeks, my team will be sending out to all schools an estimated school budget next year. Are there any questions on this? Mina?
It's not a question, Steph, don't worry. It's just to emphasise what you've said, really, which is we're really hopeful that this helps schools to better plan, but the numbers that the final numbers will, of course, be subject to change to what Steph provides in the estimated figures. So we just want to make that point really clearly.
Yeah, thanks for that. But of course, whatever the numbers are, at least we know what the national funding formulas factors are, so that as soon as we get to census date, we'll be able to even have a look ourselves at what the impact of those factors are, won't we?
Indeed.
And I think the key thing, of course, is the information in paragraph 2.4, which means that we are still able to apply the hard national funding formula for 24-25, as we have done for the last 2 years, is it? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any questions on that? All right, thank you very much. We'll move on then onto item 8, which is Steph again. Thank you.
So again, another paper just more for your consideration, and just as a note, we've been doing a lot of reviews on processes and some of the payments we make out to schools and how we do it. And as part of that process, we've been looking at the school's advance process, which is how we pay out obviously your school's budgets. As part of this process, we've been looking at what other councils do and how they pay it out. And one of the things that's been flagged is that a lot of councils actually pay out on a quarterly in advance process. This obviously reduces processing time for the local authority, and I think having analysed it a bit allows us to provide you with a greater detail through resource of really some of the items around how that's calculated and everything else. Obviously, this would only apply to maintained schools. Academies obviously get their schools budget and their funding directly from the ESFA. I'm proposing here to go out to consultation to maintain schools within the next month, just to get their viewpoints on changing from the monthly process to a quarterly in advance process and what that might look like, and get some feedback really. So this is just, I say, a small little report just to kind of outline some of the headlines that we've seen from this. How it might work. Are there any questions from this?
I just had a comment, Steph. I mean, I raised it with Fanima during the pre-meeting. One of the schools that that I represent is has a number of financial issues, shall we put it mildly, and we're always running hand to mouth in finances in terms of the bank account, as it were. I just wondered if this would have an impact on them.
In theory, I'm hoping it should have a more positive impact, because by paying quarterly in advance instead of monthly, you'll actually be schools will actually be getting more cash up in advance for a quarterly period, which should help in theory with helping to cash flow and to look after your finances, because it gives you a greater chunk to begin with. Obviously, there are caveats around that. Obviously, because you'll be given more in advance for a period, there is the risk that if you spend that early and don't manage your money, at risk of coming under financial difficulty. But again, it's how you manage money. And I say we've got a great school support, finance support team, which help the schools in managing their budgets and setting budgets and everything else in Yvonne and Alistair and their team. So I'm hoping that schools are very savvy in all of that, and that shouldn't be an issue. But,
we get very good support for that team. So yeah, thanks very much for that.
Yeah, but I say I'm going out to consultation this because I really want to hear the views from the schools and what their worries might be and what their changes are. You might think of something that I haven't, so it'd be really useful to hear that.
Thank you very much for that, Steph. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. All right then. Thank you. The item 9 then is about the early years sufficiency. Who's presenting this?
So unfortunately, Phil, Mandy hasn't been able to attend the meeting, which is a shame. And we haven't been able to arrange for an alternative person to present the report, unless, Johnny, right at the last minute, you're going to surprise me and say someone's come forward. So I'm not going to pretend to be an expert in this area, so I wouldn't propose that I attempt to present it. However, really happy, and I'm assuming, of course, everybody has had the chance to review the report. So really happy to take away any questions and pass those back to Mandy, and then we can do our best to respond through an alternative means at a later date.
Likewise, Team Mina, if there are any questions of the more financial side relating to this, I'm happy to try and answer those as well.
Fabulous. Okay, thanks, Steph.
Okay, Mary Ann Burrows then, please, is first.
Oh, hello. I think I've just turned the mic up. Hi. A quick one. The report reads well. My only query, and it's fairly general, is whether anybody at the local authority has had any information yet from local government or from central government regarding the funding next year, even a timescale by which we'll have numbers.
So I can answer that one. As part of the consultation, we have been given some estimated rates for 3 and 4 year olds, 2 year olds, and under 2s for the following financial year. Obviously, start kicking in for under 2s from April, and from 2 year olds from April, and under 2s from September. I'm in the process at the moment of modelling those figures through everything within the council to try and produce a paper to take to early years working group in January, I'm hoping, if not before, to look at what that might look like for providers as part of the budgets for next year.
Okay, Steph, you mentioned the early years working group. I've sent a couple of emails via Mandy. Do you know when that's going to be? Is there a date on that yet?
There isn't a date on that yet. I will look to try and set that in the next couple of weeks. I say everything's very much on my radar. I say I've been on maternity leave for last year and only just been back a few weeks.
Okay.
So
I didn't realise that. Steph, could you make sure that I'm on that list? I used to be on the working group before it was sort of disbanded. So I'd be quite interested in joining that.
Thanks very much. We always like voluntary participation. Brian.
Yeah, just responding to Mary on that. There's some key government dates which we have to wait for. One of them is the autumn statement, and that follows on then when we get the actual figures for 23-24 updated. They may not change, but they may do as well. So we have to wait for that, and that flows into the work that Steph will do as well. Okay, but we'll bring that to the January working group.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'll just emphasise that some of the figures that the DFE are using are very much proxy figures at the moment. Yeah, I've had a private word with Mandy, and she's saying, you know, she's concerned about some of them might be not reflective, especially when they're using 3 and 4 year old data for much younger cohorts. But that's all they can provide at the moment, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's
Sorry,
great. This Bandy, but thank you. That's lovely. Thank you.
Sorry, Brian. When you're talking about proxy figures, do you mean in terms of numbers or?
Yeah, yes, in numbers of expected take up and expected numbers of children in the younger cohorts.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Yeah, thanks very much. All right. Are there any more questions and comments on this, please? Right, thank you very much. Item 10 then is the Academy's update. Steph?
Yep. So just an update on the academies. I say we've had 6 schools convert to academy since the last schools forum in September. In September 2022, with Arley Primary School due to convert on the 1st of January. I say this currently puts us at 109 maintained schools in the primary phase and 18 infant schools. And say I'll allow you to read the report, but say we're 54% now maintained schools to compared to academy overall.
Okay, thanks for that. For noting. Thank you for the update. Okay, are there any comments? Right then. We'll turn the spotlight on Ross then. Which you're used to, aren't you?
Thanks, Philip. Yeah. So Ross Core's head of SEND and inclusion. At the previous meeting, what was suggested was there was a number of questions when we met at Harris School that about the wider kind of SEND funding system and how it works. So actually, rather than just giving a report on the SEND inclusion change program, we'd also been asked a similar thing by our audit and standards committee. So I hope it's okay. We decided to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, and we've shared the audit and standards committee report with yourselves, because I think hopefully it provides a good kind of context both of the national positioning regarding SEND and inclusion, but also the local position in terms of both in terms of funding, but also the kind of wider landscape. I'm not going to go through the paper. We did say it was for information. I'm obviously happy to take questions. I am going to say one of the things Brian referenced it earlier. We're involved in a program which is included as one of the appendices called Delivering Better Value. So we're one of 55 local authorities that's been. We mentioned this at the last schools forum as well. That's been asked to take part in a Department for Education program about how we try and get the kind of high needs block under control. We're going through that. We're following a national methodology, the same as all the other 54 local authorities in that programme. I'm going to suggest that we're moving forward with that. We are working through their observations based on our data and based on qualitative feedback. We've invited a number of parents and heads to case reviews, as well as we've gone through this process. We have a date in for November, which over the last couple of years has kind of turned into a meeting just specifically on SEND. It's looked specifically as an agenda item on the whether we move the 0.5 from the schools block to the high needs block. But I suggest we broaden that out and can have a wider discussion on SEND and delivering better value, what that programme's insights are and their recommendations for going forward, so we can work with Schools Forum in sharing that information as well. So Brian gave the report earlier. I think a number of times I've been kind of reporting that we've been overspending but going in the right direction. It doesn't feel like it's going in the right direction over the last quarter or so. Spend has been going up again over what's been allocated. We do have concerns. This paper sets out the broader kind of position of where we are. And I think in November, I'd like to come back with particularly more from the Delivering Better Value programme in terms of insights as to where they think we are and where they think there are further opportunities to try and bring the high needs block under control.
Okay. Any questions or comments, please? Okay, Rebecca.
Hi, it's only just a nice comment to say thank you. It was really informative. It was good. So thank you. Appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else? I can't see you. No. All right.
Phil.
I think there is one.
Yeah, Andy.
I can see your hand, but I can't see who it is. Oh, sorry. Yes,
Andy
Mason. Beg your pardon. I can see you now. I couldn't see you.
Hi there. Just I'd echo the last comment. Everyone's, common shared value to support SEND across Warwickshire. I think from the school end as well, I think we ought to reflect back. We appreciate everything that you're doing, and we recognise that it's probably the national funding position that is massively affecting this, and that you're working in a very, very difficult funding envelope, really. I know that obviously we'll discuss this at the next one, so to keep this short, I just want to say that the same is occurring at school end, whether it be primary or secondary. We are also facing significant extra costs despite the level of support, way beyond sort of 6.5%, and those needs in the schools are equally increasing. So that is equally a funding challenge at the school level as well as at local authority level. So I think we're all in a shared position, but I'm not sure I know what the solution is.
Okay, thanks, Andy. Brian.
Yeah, just for information, Andy and other colleagues. One of the side outcomes of the Developing Best Value programme is that the DFE will have consistent data from 55 local authorities, 9 million that they're saying going to be individual data points. So they're going to get a consistent picture about the of a cohort of local authorities on SEND data, where things are going, which will hopefully strengthen the case for more national funding. Because at the moment, it's the only sort of ideas they're getting is from the LGA, and this will almost be an independent assessment of the situation nationally that is on a consistent basis. So it's just really to feed in that information for you. It's not just about individual local authorities being in the DBV scheme. It's also about getting a consistent independent view of the data and what it's telling national government. Okay.
Thank you. Johnny.
Thanks, Philip. I just wanted to thank people that are speaking today about it and recognising the challenges and the importance of working together. That's really quite humbling. And I just wanted to support Ross because he's newly appointed to this role as head of Send and Inclusion, and he's absolutely committed and excited about pushing this forward and making sure that we're all working together to create a better experience for our young people and parents, carers, and for schools as well. And we've got full faith that that's going to happen going forward. So there's lots of good foundations. I know there are other long-standing issues around Send, but just to say that we're really, really committed to doing this beyond just talking about funding, but actually about the young people that we support and all these various programs that we're part of. The EBV, we've currently got the written state of action. We're preparing for a new inspection, but we're absolutely looking at ways to ensure that the service is being the best that it can. And Ross is at the forefront of that. So thank you everybody for that. I just thought I wanted to go on record to say that. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Just looking at paragraph 4.6, Ross, in terms of the distribution of EHC plans across the county, I'm surprised to see the number in North Warwickshire is so low, and the sort of the distribution across the districts, which seems a bit counterintuitive in terms of the demographics.
So in terms of that data, so that's just to be clear what we're counting there. It's so the total should come to around 100%. I think there are still a few which aren't recorded the county. So North Warwickshire is our smallest kind of borough in the county, so I would expect that to be a bit lower. I take the point in terms of actually the difference between kind of 31% in the last and 9% is a big difference. I think we are also seeing, when we look at sufficiency data, though, we are seeing those kind of Nuneaton and Bedworth and the central area, Warwick and Leamington, growing in population. Rugby's increasing as well. In terms of the kind of school age population, North Warwickshire and South Warwickshire have shrunk a bit. I know that's not uniform across it. There are different parts within those boroughs and districts as well. But yeah, that's what the data is telling us at the moment in terms of where the spread is. In terms of the residents of those with EHC plans. Okay, thank you. And I think my other question is, I'm getting a bit of feedback from schools about difficulties in edge site capacity, being able to get enough edge site provision. And I wonder if you'd like to comment in that in terms of you mentioned here about increasing number of children with EHCPs who are getting excluded. And the difficulties that might happen in terms of both getting EHCPs and in terms of management of difficult behaviour. Yeah, so in terms of education psychology, I mean, across the country, there's a capacity issue. I would say locally, actually, we have a good kind of army, if you like, of education psychologists. So I think compared to some neighbouring local authorities, we have more. We have more full-time equivalents of education psychologists than elsewhere. I think what you're referring to, Philip, as it really reflects the increased demand that's out there at the moment. One of the challenges for us is we trade that education psychology input as well as needing that for statutory assessment, and we're trying to sort of some of our delays at the moment around statutory assessment. Because of the commitments we have with schools, and we're trying to both abide by the commitments we have with schools, but also make sure we're in terms of that increase in requests for EHC assessments, make sure we're getting the IEPs out there. So we're trying to kind of stretch across both. I think it's really a reflection of actually just the increased demand overall. So I think it's reflected in the paper. The number of EHC plans we've issued has gone up in the last year. The number of requests has gone up significantly in the last year, and that pulls on all parts of the system. I do see an opportunity going forward. I think one of the things we need to look at is how we're using our education psychologists, our specialist teachers, others in the SEND and inclusion kind of workforce. How do we make best use of that? So I think there's still opportunities to look at what we do and how we use our workforce, but I'd acknowledge the pressure that's been shared with you.
Okay, thank you. Nick Evans, please.
Hi, Nick, head at Evergreen Special School, and just wanted to comment on Ross's point about demand. I was going through the number of consultations we had as a special school last academic year. It was over 250 consultations that I had to respond to over the course of the year. So, and I know that's we obviously serve the central Warwickshire area, one of the areas with growing demand for spaces. So just wanted to back up Ross's point about the pressures in the system and the challenges with that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on this report, please? Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll move on to item 12, which is the forward plan. And this is you, Steph, I think, isn't it?
It is, yes. So I say, as previous meetings, this is the forward plan of meetings that are upcoming and items that will be presented for decision and information and comment. The next meeting is the 16th of November meeting, which, as Ross mentioned, is the meeting where we'll be bringing 0.5% disapplication transfer paper, as well as now probably discussing SEND and better value.
Okay, thanks for that. And can I remind members that if they've got something that they want to discuss relating to school finance, then please talk to us. If you want that to go into the forward plan, it doesn't all have to come from the officers. So if you want think of something that we're not talking about on Schools Forum, right, in school finance that we ought maybe, then please talk to Dalbeer, and we can put it onto the forward plan. Okay. Thank you very much. Item 13 is I haven't been notified of any other business. In terms of chair's business, because the recording wasn't going at the beginning, I will just repeat my thanks to Alison Davis, Joss Andrew and Paul Gillett for their service to the Schools Forum over the last few years, and extend the welcome to Blake Francis in his absence. Put that on the record. And just remains for me then to thank everybody for their attendance today. Thank you to the officers for those comprehensive reports and for the presentations, and wrap up the meeting and say that the plan is that we will see you again on the 16th of November. If there are any changes to that, we'll let you know as soon as we can. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Phil. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.